The next speaker is Dr. Sasanka Deka, Assistant Professor at Delhi University. Shashank area of research are nanostructured material for catalytic application, novel nanocrystals for energy conversion and storage. His key works include cadmium selenide, cadmium sulfide, zinc sulfide, double shell nanorods with high photoluminescence efficiency and their exploitation as biolabeling probes. Morphology controlled synthesis of nanoporous CO3O4 nanostructure and their charge storage characteristics in supercapacitor. Copper cobalt sulfide nanosheets realizing a promising electrocatalytic oxygen evolution reaction. I myself have read some of his papers and got influenced by his sulfide work, and which we did recently for some of the electrochemical application. It's a pleasure to have Professor Shashank, Dr. Shashank. He's talking to us today on the usefulness of nanostructured catalyst material in water splitting reaction. So, Dr. Shashank, if you're ready, you can just say hello to all of us.
Yeah, hello.
You're audible perfectly. Share your screen, full screen mode.
Good afternoon. Can you see my screen?
Yes, full screen, please.
Is it
yes.
okay?
Excellent, excellent. We are ready to go. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Sudhanshu, for your kind invitation to be present in this very nice actually conference where we are learning a lot of things on catalysis and surface reactions. So today I'm going to say some usefulness, say the being nanoparticle, what is the usefulness of this material in catalysis reaction and some on the water splitting reaction. Basically, in my nanochemistry laboratory, what we do, basically, I'm a nanochemist, synthetic nanochemist, and I learned all this electrochemistry just 5 years back only. So I am not expert on electrochemistry, but just I'm learning. So basically, we do synthesis, characterization of the desired shape, size, and composition, functionality. So we make 0D, 1D, 2D, and complex nanomaterials. And first part we do quantum dots, semiconductors, and one part, as Dr. Sudan said, is a supercapacitor for energy storage. And finally, what we are trying or learning, it is a catalysis. Okay, a part of that is water splitting. So today I'm going to discuss only the catalysis part. So what is where I think we all these 2 days we are discussing mainly sustainable health and system cat. It is the energy only, clean energy or renewable energy. So what is the say advantage of the nanoparticle or the catalysis being a nanoparticle? So we can see here few points out of this. The first point everybody knows, that is the high surface area. Everybody knows about that one. So being a high surface area, what is the advantage? The more number of unsaturated surface atoms. I'm going to discuss all this thing later on. Then more number of dangling bonds, more number of active sites, and the porous structure. So these 5 points at the beginning, this helps us really lot in the catalysis reaction, any kind of catalysis reactions. Then the construction of different facets. This is one of the important point which I will discuss again. Then it increases the turnover frequency. Then more catalytic reactions can occur at the same time. So these are the main advantages of being a nanoparticle of the catalyst material. And finally, if we want a photocatalytic material, so it is a tunable band gap. Due to the band gap engineering, we can tune the band gap. We can say increase the density of state electron energy, and then the diffusion length also we can change here. So what we learned that, as I said here, say this is the more number of active sites or construction of prepared facets. So this is our experience from our group. We prepared cerium oxide nanoparticles at the beginning. So these particles were, so it is a truncated octahedron shape, if you can see here. And these shapes, these particular shapes, they were exposed mainly say 100 and mainly 100 plane. And if we know that this gamma, this is the interfacial energy of the two facets. So this energy is very high for this 110 or 100, or it is very low for the 111 plane. And that means the 111 plane is the most stable plane. So if we have the crystallite or nanocrystal, if they are exposed to this 111 facet, so that will be less reactive. And if it is 110 or 100, then it will be more reactive. And then after getting that experience, then we come to the next work where we have prepared a new three-dimensional self-assembled cerium oxide nanotubes. So what is the purpose of that? So we prepared, so we started with the cerium nitrate and all oleic acid oleamine. Basically, thing is that when they make the nanocrystal building blocks, that is the teeny nanoparticle of cerium oxide, it is around 6 nanometer diameter. So as from the this experience that they are mainly say 100 and 11 facet terminated nanocrystal teaser. Now what we did, we have the oleic acid which has a high tendency to bind with the 100 facets. Okay. So when the oleic acid binds to the 100 facet during the reaction, this is an in situ reaction that it kept or it say blocked that 100 facet. So the 111 facets that remain as active or say it is unoccupied. Now when we keep on doing the reaction for higher temperature for longer run, so this 11 facets which were free, one facets which were free, so they gone for the oriented attachment and we got a highly porous nanocube of cerium oxide, which is say mainly exposed to the 110 and 100 facets only. And because of that, we got the 100% selectivity or conversion of paraxylene to terephthalic acid. And you know, terephthalic acid is one of the high commodity material, which is a billion dollar industry. Now, what is happening in that one? So when we do the reaction, paraxylene to terephthalic acid is a commercial reaction. It is done at high temperature and it is a free radical reaction. There are the steps, initiation, propagation, and termination steps. So when we want to do this reaction with our nanoparticle, it brings that reaction which was in the harsh condition to the green condition in water at room temperature. So this is the characterization of the nanoparticle. If we see here, it is mainly C200 planes mainly, or this is the family of the 110, that direction of this one, of this cerium oxide nanoparticle. So if we want to go for the reaction, as from in the morning or recently also, Dr. Halder discussed about the oxygen vacancy. So, and one question from Divya that how we create the vacancy, how we control that the vacancy. So if we see this slide, so we have calculated the number of the vacancy. So what is that? It is actually when we prepare, say with the nanocrystal, it is engineering, right? We are making what is crystal engineering. So with the help of this, as I said, using of this surface selective solvents or surfactants, we can make the nanoparticle uh, a special facets direct, exposed facets. So we make that, we made that. So we got only 100 facets, and that gives a lot of oxygen vacancy. And you know that energy, why it is? Because energy required to create the catalytically important oxygen vacancy defects, or it's called oxygen storage capacity, OSC, is low for the low index surfaces, that is 100 and 110 as compared to the 111. So we calculated the number of vacancy. This is the equation, n is equal to 3 by 4 pi L square, where L is the correlation length, average distance between the two lattice defects. So if we have the, from this one you can see, if we have the more lattice, this L become more, so we'll have higher, lower L here. And the number of vacancies we got 1.42 10 to the 21 cent per centimeter. So that means a huge oxygen vacancy is there. So because of that, now first part is the oxygen vacancy, and second part is that the use of the surfactant. So these both, what happened there when the paraxylene is added? Paraxylene is the organic compound and our nanoparticle is the inorganic compound. So how the reactions happen? So what happened here when we have this long chain hydrocarbon chain? So that makes a tunnel or channel for the this adsorption of the reactant over the surface of that one. And when these molecules they adsorb on the defect sites, they give this radicals. It is arylyl and alkoxyl radicals, and this reaction and this radical they reacts with the adsorbed molecular oxygens, which give us the product terephthalic acid. And further, what we did, we have further anneal the sample and we do more reaction, and then we got a different means same morphology but with highly exposed 200 facets we can see here. Okay, so in this case when we make this cerium oxide nanorods and the nanocube, which is different from the previous one. In this case, we got it is the uh, oxidation of alcohol to the aldehyde. In this one, what happened? The more number of, now you can say, defect sites, it is n is equal to 2.1. So after this one, I want to say here this is what is the mechanism. So again, the mechanism, as I said, there are two main points. One is the surface defect. This is the oxygen vacancy that is in 100 plane. This is the 100 plane, and other is the phases direction, right? Because this is the 100 low index phases, which gives a more number of uh, oxygen vacancy defects because of the higher energy. So what happened here? This is a conversion of mechanism of benzyl alcohol and toluene. So it is a benzyl alcohol and a toluene. It was very simple. Everybody knows it is well established. So in this one, when we have the 100 surface, this is corresponding to 200 H scale plane here. That OH bond that breaks upon the adsorption on the defect sites that again release the alkoxide species here. So ultimately, these facets and the defects that help in the high yield of the product or high conversion of the reactant molecule. Further, doing this one, we have tried with other nanomaterial, and we found that as compared to the bulk, say for example silver nickel alloy, it was because of the, as I said, multiply twinned structure, it gives a lot of defects. And again, with the help of the surfactant, because as I am saying, the importance of the surfactant also, because if we strip off the surfactant from this one, if we heat the material and if we remove the surfactant, then we don't get any product. It means the catalysis reaction is zero, so we do not get any product. And further, uh, doing say this silver nickel core graded alloy cell nanostructure, this also again helps that it is a synergistic effect from the both metals there in the organic this multi-substituted indole synthesis reaction. Now I'm coming to the say today's part, what is called hydrogen production reaction. So we know about this one. Morning also, uh, all the speakers they said about this all these four processes. The first one we know about the steam methane reforming, that which gives you as a greenhouse effect, greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide. Then the coal gasification, which also gives us the carbon dioxide gas. So people, we are now all people they are looking for this non renewable, the green energy source hydrogen gas from the water electrocatalysis and water photocatalysis. So in this one, we get only hydrogen and oxygen, and already we know from the previous speaker. And this is the most famous volcano plot where we can see platinum is at the top. In this one, this diagram, what is the one beneficial, that if you see the Gibbs free energy, it is showing at 0 volt. So 0 electron volt. So it is easier to understand that whatever the catalyst metal we are using, if it shows that Gibbs free energy, that is the hydrogen adsorption and the desorption, it is near to 0. That is the minimum. That is the best catalyst. So that's why platinum and platinum 111, they are used to be the very best catalyst for the hydrogen generation from the water. But what I'm going to discuss, that is the oxygen evaluation reaction. So we know that oxygen evaluation reaction, that is the most largest reaction in the water splitting, because it involves the 4 electron process. And if you see the voltage here, and you know that oxygen evaluation, it takes 4 electron and it needs more energy, that is 1.23 volt. And hydrogen evaluation, it takes at 0 volt. That is in alkaline solution. In acidic solution, you can see this is the voltage. Now already we come to know about the overpotential. Overpotential is the difference between the whatever the required potential to break to release the oxygen and the standard potential, that is 1.23 volt. So what is our aim, or all the researchers aim to bring down the overpotential, whether it is hydrogen evaluation overpotential or oxygen evaluation potential. And these are few of the best catalysts: ruthenium oxide, iridium oxide, cobalt oxide, manganese oxide. They are used for oxygen evaluation reaction. Now I'm coming to again my previous slide. So in the previous slide, what we come to know about this one, that high surface area, more number of unsaturated surface atoms, more number of dangling bonds, more number of active sites, and construction of preferred phases. So I'm going to discuss these few things here. So this is one of my favorite slide. I think it will be beneficial for the student. So we always say the nanoparticle have very high surface area. So actually how it is helping. So if we take say a bigger ball of radius r is equal to 1000, and if we take the equivalent, say we make 1000 balls which radius is equal to 1. Say this is for the calculation. And if we calculate the area and the volume for both of them, and we take the ratio for the bigger ball, we get A versus V, A by V, that is 0.002, and for the smaller balls we get A by V is 3. That means for the same material, if it is a smaller ball, that is R is equal to 1, you can see that area to voltage area to volume ratio is much higher than the bigger one. So same thing now we do for the nanoparticle. Let's take one macro scale, say macroscopic material. Say it is a 1 centimeter cube. Assume that we have a cube with the size of length 1 centimeter, and at the same time, let's take a cube with side of length of 1 nanometer. So that is 10 to the minus 7. And we now calculate a typical material possesses 10 to the power 23 atoms, and that is equivalent to 10 to the 15 atom per centimeter. And same thing here. Now we do the same calculation in the as we did here, and actually we are calculating the number of atoms present at the volume, at the bulk, and at the surface. For the bigger particles, so for the 1 centimeter cube particle, the ratio of surface to total atoms is 6 into 10 to the minus 8. Now see, surprisingly, it is a very simple calculation, and if you can see now, the ratio of surface to total atoms in case of 1 nanometer particle, it is 0.6. That means a 1 nanometer particle is having almost 10 to the power 8 times more surface atoms at the surface. So when we have more atom at the surface, so we'll have more number of unsaturated surface atoms, because when the atoms at the bulk means inside, they are bonded, they are surrounded by the other atoms. Okay, when let's say we have a zinc oxide, iron oxide, whatever the lattice unit, all are surrounded by the corresponding the counter atoms. But when we have lot of atoms at the surface, the outside the surface atoms, they have dangling bonds, means the outside atoms, they are free. That one bond will be free, so that of lot of electrons will be there, lot of unsaturated surface atoms will be there, which are called the dangling bonds, and that gives us the more number of active sites. Okay, and coming to the preferred sites, the specific atom terminated surface, which is one of the very popular phenomenon. I'm taking an example of a very famous paper. This is on cadmium selenide nanocrystal. This is the high resolution high resolution time of this cadmium selenide nanocrystal. You can see here there are three facets. One is 0, 0, 1, one is 1, 0, 0, and 1, 0, 0, minus 1. In this one, this top surface is the selenium terminated, and this is the bottom one is the cadmium terminated surface. Okay, now like this cadmium selenide, the cadmium selenide not a good not a good catalyst. If we make other crystal catalyst nanoparticle, for example, cerium oxide, iron oxide, molybdenum oxide, anything. If we can make the nanoparticle with the preferred phases, means that some terminated, that one surface will have some few terminated atoms, that will give us the huge reactivity. Okay, and other thing, the porous structure already I have shown in the cerium oxide nanocubes, because of the formation of this nanocube. That is a big nanocube of 90 nanoparticle, where they are made of 6 nanometer small nanocrystal building blocks. That gives us lot of pores, and larger and more pores means all inside active sites are accessible by the reactor. And one more thing, this is also important because when we want to prepare say this kind of nanoparticle, or say surface active nanoparticle or catalysis, so what we have to make, we have to tune the synthesis of the nanoparticle very effectively. Okay, so this equation is called, it is the classical theory of nucleation. it is J is the nucleation rate. And if we see this equation here, in this equation there are three variables. One is the temperature, one is the degree of supersaturation, one other is the interfacial tension. That means if we increase the temperature of the reaction, we increase the nucleation. You can see here rate of nucleation. If we increase the supersaturation means it is the concentration of the precursor. If we increase the concentration of precursor, again we are increasing the rate of the nucleation, you can see in this figure. And if we reduce the interfacial tension, that is the use of the surfactant, then again we are increasing the rate of the nucleation. So when we do this one, we get monodisperse nanoparticle, and using a surfactant, we can make the nanoparticle two-dimensional, one-dimensional, say nanosheets or nanorods or quantum dots. And then we have to follow the nucleation and growth process. In the growth process, there we have two growth process. One is the focused growth, and one is the unfocused growth. And after following all this, we can make nice nanoparticles, and that gives us a lot of good examples. And these are a few of the, say, I just took up three DFT calculation first principle paper on this nanoparticle on hydrogen evolution reaction. First one, this is the left one, it is on gold nickel alloy nanoparticle. And what happens there? This is just related to the, as I discussed, the being a nanoparticle, how it is effective or how it is helpful or how it is usefulness. That's what I wanted to show. This silver nickel alloy, in this one, when they did the reaction, there used to be leaching of nickel. Sorry. So there used to be leaching of the nickel, and because of the leaching, the coordination number of silver, it become come down, and that helps actually lowering the absorption and desorption energy of hydrogen ion on the surface of that or the catalyst, and that gives a lot of reactivity. Another example, this is the ultra small tungsten carbide nanoparticle. Again, same description here. One more important here, you can see in this one, graphitic and graphene and chromium dop period in this one. When chromium is dropped in this one, you can see the energy is minimum for this hydroxyl groups. So where we have the minimum free energy, that is GeV. So we come to know that when we have a preferred material, a preferred size, that gives us the minimum potential, minimum energy for hydrogen adsorption and hydrogen desorption, that gives us good hydrogen evolution reaction. So after that, so we started our journey for this water splitting. This is the copper cobalt sulfide nanosheets, as Dr. Sudhanshu mentioned. So we prepared is a very simple hydrothermal technique. This nanosheets, which will be 12 nanometer in the thickness, which is determined from the AFM. And without going too much to the characterization, just I'm going to the electrocatalysis part here. You can see it is in 2017, and it was ETA, this over potential was 310 millivolt. That time it was very low at that time. And it giving constantly 12 hours cycling, and it is 10,000 cycling also. And it gives a mass activity which reaches maximum at mass loading of 0.7 milligram per centimeter square. So why it is important that 0.7 milligram per centimeter square? When we did a theoretical amount calculation of nanosheets to cover the classic carbon electrode, so actually it was required 0.026 milligram. And when we calculated our one, we found that the mass which is covering the total mass of the material, including the binder, it is 0.049 milligram. So it is in this one, it is the weight of the binder also included. That's what it means, that almost equal what is the theoretical amount, it is the same amount. That means a monolayer of our nanosheets is enough to cover the entire electrode surface, and that is good for the electrocatalytic reaction. So what happening in this one? Let's see reason behind the excellent OER activity. So what we did a lot of XPS there. First, you can see we have prepared We have prepared cobalt sulfide. So the main material is copper, CuCO2S4. Then we have prepared the standard copper cobalt sulfide also, CO3S4. Then copper 0.5 and cobalt 2.5 S4 material. And we have done the XPS first. And the XPS you can see here, the cobalt 2p spin orbit doublets and Sasanka satellites is give the cobalt 2p 3 by 2 and cobalt 2p half. And there are say cobalt 2 plus and cobalt 3 plus, but cobalt 3 plus intensity is more, which gives that there is more cobalt 3 plus than the cobalt 2. Then in case of copper, there is peak from cobalt both copper 1 plus and copper 2 plus. And the copper 2 plus, this is stronger copper sulfide bond, and the higher ligand, this and it gives us that there is a higher ligand to metal charge transfer occur in this one. And from this EPR spectra, what we can see, there is a asymmetric broad resonance in this one. It is a we have done at room temperature as well as at 100 Kelvin. And this one, and one more thing here, that uncoupled cobalt 2 plus signal is absent in this one. So what it says that in this copper cobalt sulfide, what it says that cobalt 2 plus is ferromagnetically coupled with other cobalt atom, and mainly it is a cobalt 3 plus, they are in high spin state, that is the T2Z4 EZ2. And this is Raman spectra. And now from this XPS and from EPR, and I'll come to this FTIR, what led us to the conclusion that if you see this slide, what we know generally, that in case of spinel, because copper cobalt sulfide is this normal mixed normal spinel, that octahedral sites are catalytically active, and one plane of the spinel solely expose the octahedral coordination. So what we found from the XPS that it is mainly cobalt 3 plus, and from EPR we found it is cobalt 3 are the high spin. So our results, actually it is corroborating with earlier theoretical results. These are the theoretical results, they have explained this thing, and that's what we got a very nice oxygen evaluation from this copper cobalt sulfide nanosheets. One more thing I want to say, so originally the material is cobalt sulfide, okay, CO3S4. So we introduced copper here. So because of the introduction of the copper, it pushes the cobalt ion, most of the cobalt ion 2 plus to the 3 plus ions. Okay. And another thing is, if you can see, this is the what is this actually a pseudo in situ OER FTIR. You can see this pink one. This is the cobalt sulfide. There is OH. This is medium banding and strong banding, which is absent in case of CO3S4. So when we introduce copper into the lattice, it gives this adsorption. This is after the this is the means when we are doing the OER reaction. So this is from that one. So it shows that because of the copper, so we have more adsorption of hydrogen, OH groups there, and finally it gives a Tafel combination type of mechanism, as we can see in this. So we have after that we have followed the this material, and we have prepared now hollow cobalt sulfide nanoparticle. And what is the beauty of this material? That it is a robust and low cost pH universal oxygen evolution. Okay, it gives us oxygen evolution in acidic, neutral, and alkaline media. So this is the characterization. I don't want to go with the characterization. Everybody knows about that. So just we can see this is the hollow nanoparticle. You can see a hole there, and this is because of the galvanic replacement. This formation of this hollow nanoparticle happens because the cobalt was first nucleated, and addition of sulfur, it leads to the oxidation of cobalt from the core, and it's coming out, and it reacts with the sulfur from the cobalt sulfide core cell outside the hole. This already we know, and just where we can see the water electrocatalysis is relatively favorable in acidic and alkaline conditions due to the presence of deprotonated water molecules available for the OER. But this is difficult in the neutral condition, in which is kinetically more difficult. So what happened here? If you see This is the OER reaction in KOH. This is OER reaction in H2SO4, and this is in PBS, neutral material. And this reaction goes for 48 hours. Okay, so we try to understand the mechanism. So what is happening here? Let's see. The first thing is the position of the cobalt 2 plus cobalt 3 plus high spin, the cobalt 3 plus high spin state, which we got from the EPR study. So next one is that in this one, the discharging of this cobalt hydroxyl species that promotes the removal of protons, and finally we get cobalt OOH species. You can see from here, this is the XPS, this is the phase catalyst, and this is the after span catalyst. So we can see clearly the cobalt hydroxide and COOH peaks here, which support our claim. So that gives, and one more thing, the repulsion between the p orbital of sulfogens, that is the sp, or if it is a selenide, and 2p of the orbital of the oxygen, that causes formation of OOH. So from FTIR, what again we can see here, that formation of OOH species here, which is not present in the fresh sample. Okay, and one more thing, that as you know, extra about that is this electrochemically active surface area, electrochemically active surface area, which gives us the knowledge about the actual electrochemical site. This is different from the VET surface area. Okay, VET surface area we get mainly the complete surface area, but in this one, ECSA, we get only the catalytically active surface, right? So that surface area, when we calculate from the capacitance mode from this experiment on the non-ferritic region, we found this is very high, and it is around 58.75 centimeters. Okay, so this gives us this mechanism gives us that as we know about the acidic reaction, we know in acidic condition we know what happens, and in alkaline medium also we know what happens. But we are not sure. We don't know actually what why it is giving in alkaline medium in this case. Okay, so after that, just I move to the photocatalysis here. So we know about the photocatalysis. We had very nice talks in the morning about the photocatalysis with the photocatalysis for the hydrogen evaluation reaction. There are many pros and cons. So we know the advantages of this photocatalysis, but the main disadvantages, as earlier speaker in the morning session also they highlighted. First one is the high electron hole pair recombination rate. Then one more is the successive reaction of the photoenergized hole. So these, so out of all these five, the main difficulty is the high electron hole pair recombination. And one more point I want to add here, I think in the previous session also, somebody asked about this usefulness of metal oxide versus the sulfide in case of photocatalysis. I'd like to add here that, see, if you read the line, the high affinity of hydrogen with oxygen leads to hydrogen embrittlement, that is metal hydride formation inside lattice on metal oxide surface, which reduces the catalysis durability in photocatalytic water splitting reaction. So this is actually what we found. This is not happening in case of metal sulfide, because metal sulfides are ionic in character in the range of 20 to 30%. So in this case, that the hydrogen embrittlement is lesser than the oxide material, so it should give a good stability. And following that, what we have not done earlier, we have not done any photocatalytic study. We have started with this copper cobalt sulfide material. And why we wanted to study? Because see, when we do the photocatalytic, when we do electrocatalytic hydrogen evaluation reaction, water splitting reaction, the catalyst used should have a metallic character, almost metallic character. It should have high conductivity. I have not shown here. We have done EIS study. From their impedance study, we found our copper cobalt sulfide is a good conducting material. Okay, then as a copper cobalt, since it is chalcogen material, so it should be a semiconductor also. So with the same synthesis and characterization, we started doing the characterization for the semiconductor properties. If we see this one, the first one, this is the optical studies from the Kubelka-Monk plot. The first time we established the band gap of this copper cobalt sulfide as 2.24 electron volt as very good uh, band gap for water splitting if the CV and VV they lies above and below the required hydrogen and oxygen evaluation reaction. Okay, then we have conducted the Motzkowski plot. From there we found that it is a p-type semiconductor because it is a negative slope, and we found here this is the this is the VB from the intersection from this intersection of this point. We found the VB of the material is 1.07 electron volt. Okay, and as we found the band gap of that material is 2.24, so it is not difficult for us to find the CV. And if you can see now for this one that CV is much lower than the hydrogen evaluation potential. Means it is minus 1.17. So very good for hydrogen evaluation reaction, but not good for oxygen evaluation reaction. And we have carried out this VV XPS VV, and we found from that one the Fermi level, and which is at 0.47 electron. And one more thing from the Motzkowski, what we found the donor concentration, and donor concentration is to be very high, 7.22 into 10 to the power 18 centimeter cube. This is very high. Now this is the photocatalysis result. So this is giving very good activity, 20 almost 26 millimole per gram per hour. This is equivalent to 630 milliliter per gram hydrogen. Okay, so basically we know that photocatalytic reaction that is similar everywhere, means what is happening you know already. Already we discussed that on the photo excited there will be excited generation will hole will be at the PV, electron will be the conduction time. So we try to find, because, and one more thing, because if we do not add any in this reaction, if we do not add any sacrificial agent, we do not get the much hydrogen, because we have the holes there, and hole will be again recombined with the electrons, and we will get only thermal or emission. So to stop that one, we need the sacrificial agent, and we did the mechanism study, and what we found that what happening in this reaction, and from the band structure and from the XPS all this thing, what we found that in this copper cobalt sulfide, that that electronic states near the Fermi level that consists of mainly cobalt 3d and sulfur 3p orbitals. Okay, and there are few literature also on theoretical calculation, and this cobalt 3d are more localized, and the density of the states, the electron density of the metal d orbital at Fermi level higher for this copper cobalt sulfide. Okay, so that's what it gives us a very good electron donation, and that electron that takes part in the photocatalytic series. And there is one more thing I must inform you, that what we got from the XPS also, that this cobalt 3D and sulfur 3P, they are having very good overlap, and the large overlap in the metal sulfur that increases the covalent character. And that cobalt 3D that is more closer to the Fermi level of the material of this semiconductor. So continue with that one. We tried this one copper graphite carbon nitride material, and we know well about the graphite carbon nitride material. This is made from the triazine ring, and we have the C3N4 material, and this band gap is very good here, 2.7 electron volt, and there it is very much lower than the hydrogen evaluation and very much higher than the oxygen evaluation here. And it is a noble metal free pi conjugated semiconductor, and it is very low cost. It doesn't have any precious metal or transition metal. It has only carbon and nitrogen. So we prepared one direct what is called development of nitrogen rich holy carbon nitride nanosheets. Okay, it is a very simple synthesis. We just add melamine.
Can we summarize in 5 minutes?
Yes, yes, yes. It was the synthesis. What we got, the main this one important point is that we have a nitrogen rich here, nitrogen rich compound. We have excess nitrogen. The general formula is C3N4, but we have C3N4.8. How we characterize the nitrogen, excess nitrogen, we found from the XPS, we have the P here. Now, how the nitrogen is helping in this way? When see, we know that this nitrogen, we have the lone pair of the nitrogen. In this, when we have the excess nitrogen, this nitrogen atoms is to stay at the surface of the ring. Okay, they are not participating in the ring. So they have this extra, this and the, already we have the localized electron over the ring, and now we have more electrons from the lone pairs of the nitrogen. So finally, these both electrons. So in this, both these kind of electrons, they participate in the photovoltaic reaction. When we excite the material, that so more number of electrons are coming to the conduction band and takes plus. And this mechanism, we know already that when this we are having this reaction, when exciting, we have the photogenerated electron that reduce the hydrogen ion to the hydrogen gas. But the advantage of this material is that we have excess nitrogen, which gives us lot of say hydrogen evaluation reaction. Okay, so continuing with that one, this is just recently published, so it is again on for graphite carbon nitride. Again, same story here. We got, but just the synthesis and the morphology of the material is completely different. Okay, this is a very nice nanosheet of this one, graphite carbon nitride. So what happened here? What we found that P bonding at the sp2 hybridization carbon sites that favor the clustering of the aromatic rings into the graphitic sheet. So decrease of the band gap actually. So generally we know the band gap of this material used to be 2.7. So what we reduce the band gap to the 2.42 electron volt. So that is a very good thing. And one more important thing is that because of this is a very thin wall structure. This wall is very thin there, and because of the path length actually increases, and we have a very high separation of electron and holes. And you can see that average lifetime of the electrons, the charge carriers in this sample is for the nano sample is higher than the bulk sample. And you can see photoluminescence also. It is in case of nano material, that nanosheets, it is lower because there's a photo quenching is there because the electrons are not recombining with the holes. Okay, and one thing as already I described earlier also, that access this amine group, as I said, NH2 group, they firmly bind to the surface of the triazine ring, and both amine groups and aromatic groups, they give abundant electrons for the photocatalytic hydrogen evaluation. Okay, and finally, then overall conclusion, that is say nanomaterials are very much effective in energy conversion and storage reaction. See, not only for energy conversion and storage. So we from the beginning we come to know that if we have a bulk material and the corresponding nanomaterial, so we have lot of good catalytic activity because the high surface area, high lot of dangling bonds, unsaturated atoms, preferred facets, and the porosity. Nanomaterials are very much promising for multi-function application. So from the same, actually I have not shown, from the same material, I got very good energy storage application. And there's no degradation of material after continuous cycling because we have tried for photocatalytic or electrocatalytic, we have tried for 50 hours, 100 hours, and for energy storage, for supercapacitor, we have done for 40,000, 50,000 cycles. So with this, I would like to thank the funding agencies of my project, BSc, DBT, CSR, BARC, and my collaborator and my student Meenakshi, Pellan, Bhupesh, Mani, Bindu Antil, and collaborators, C.S. Gopinath from NCL Pune, Manasundar Das from NH Jorhat, S.A. Hasni from Physics BU, and Dr. Basudev Saha, who is now US. And this is our university. And finally, I'd like to thank for your attendance. Thank you.